I'm sure this has happened to you at some point. Imagine you're playing a competitive game of chess and suddenly your opponent surprises you with a clever move. Your heart skips a beat and you start thinking to yourself, ugh, I really don't like what I'm seeing right now. Well, today we're going to enjoy an amazing game from the black pieces side, and we're going to put ourselves in the shoes of the white pieces precisely to feel that sensation I just described at the beginning. I assure you that in this game we'll learn a ton, and above all, we'll have a great time. We're setting the scene in the city of Budapest. Honestly, I don't remember the year because I'm relying a bit on memory for this game. I remember it by heart. So let's enjoy it. Knight to f3 from the white pieces, d5 from the black pieces, and d4 from the white pieces. It starts with a ready opening with knight to f3, but after the move d5, the player with the white pieces says, well, I'll just play normally with d4, and then after this knight to f6 with c4. In other words, we're in a completely standard line of the Queen's Gambit, right? A gambit we've seen several times on the channel. One of the favorite gambits of the best players in the world, is it? And here, there are 1,000 ways to respond. The player with the black pieces decides to play the Slav defense with c6. Alright, this is the Slav defense with c6. What's the difference with the semi-Slav defense? The semi-Slav also has the d-pawn. It's that simple, right? Very good. Let me say something before I forget, and then we'll continue with the game. Because if I forget, I'm gonna get annoyed later when I finish the video. So you're gonna see this video on Sunday, right? Well, it's going to be released late Sunday. I don't know when you'll watch it. So if you're watching this on Sunday, today at 7 p.m. Spanish time, the newsletter will go out with what I've been telling you about for days now. All right, let me tell you what it is because I just can't hold it in any longer. I'll give you a little teaser. Grandmaster Mauricio Flores, one of my favorite grandmasters and someone who has inspired me the most throughout my professional career, has created a winning model based on a chess structure so you can win all your games by reaching that structure. What? It's a course with lots of videos and it's also going to have practical exercises, okay? Because he set it up in an app. Honestly, he's put in an incredible amount of work. Seriously, you're going to be blown away, I promise. And it's going to cost less than a private lesson with him. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. So if you're watching this today, Sunday, and it's not 7 yet, in the evening, Spanish time, hurry up and subscribe to the newsletter. I'll leave the link for you down below in the description, and if not, it'll be public for everyone tomorrow, Monday, for all the followers. Alright? So come on, let's focus on the game, and starting tomorrow, we'll begin training seriously. Let's go! We've seen that black is playing a semi-Slav so far. This isn't interesting, right? And black decides to play e6, turning, if you've been paying attention, the Slav defense into a semi-Slav defense. Well, all of this is so well known in current theory that we're going to go through it a bit faster. Queen to b3, a completely logical move. Black takes advantage of the fact that the queen has moved to capture this pawn, and in doing so, they're telling white, hey, you have to move your queen again to recapture this pawn. So white is losing a bit of time with the queen, which black takes advantage of by playing b5, forcing the queen to move again. The queen retreats to d3. Notice what the queen has done. It went to b3, then to c4, and now back to d3. 3 consecutive queen moves, which obviously isn't ideal. The game continues with a 6, reinforcing the structure here. All of this is very well known and commonly played, and white plays bishop to g5. Chess teacher, you're going through this a bit fast. Yes, I'm aware, because the important, fun, and above all, impressive part is about to come. Black tries to break the center directly with the move c5. You already know that when one of the two players has pawns in the center and the other doesn't, in this case, the center is these 4 points here, right? These 4 little squares. White has a pawn and black has none, so black needs to try to fight for the center. And they can do this either with the central pawns or usually with the c pawns. In this case, there's already an interesting breaking point here. White needs to think about what to do. Surely if white had known what was coming, right? They wouldn't have made this move here, a 4. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you, the move makes sense. Black is advancing too much on the queen side. White's plan is to destabilize and start breaking all of this to open up the position so that black doesn't get that attack. This pawn on b5 is being threatened, which black decides to give up with the move knight to c6. And why do they decide to give it up? Because they understand they have enough counterplay to be better in exchange for a pawn. Haven't we studied a lot of gambits on this channel where we give up a pawn in exchange for initiative? Well, in this case, it's the same, right? Very good. So here, the best thing the player with the white pieces could do was play d takes c5, even though it doesn't look too good, right? Because we're developing our opponent's dark square bishop, and it's probably going to be fine for them. What is true, though, is that after pawn takes pawn, bishop takes, we could exchange queens and all the danger would be over. But pay attention, because thanks to the fact that the player with the white pieces decided to go into this line, the game turned out to be absolutely amazing, and we can share it here today. Alright, he trades the bishop for the knight. Surely, if I asked you all how you would continue, 90% of you would say queen takes bishop. Do you know what he did? Here, the player with the black pieces took with the pawn. He figured that this queen was putting incredible pressure on the d-file and was going to be very useful. This is dangerous, opening up the king like this, right? But if you have a clear attacking plan and you understand that the queen will be better on d than on f, then it's not a bad idea to try to capture with the pawn. Pay attention to how the game continues. The player with the white pieces captures the pawn that black just gave away a moment ago. You remember, right? This pawn is being attacked by 2 pieces and only defended by 1, so it's under attack. And I'll tell you something else. This white pawn can't be captured, because the rook on a8 is completely undefended. And if the pawn captures on b5, the rook would capture the rook on a8. On a8. Now the queen is starting to look like a circus act, because first she went to b, then to c, then to d, and now she has to move again and places herself on e4. A key moment in the game. What is this queen doing? Well, you can clearly see she's directly targeting the rook on a8. So here comes the first situation I was telling you about at the beginning of the video. Just try to imagine how the player with the white pieces must have felt when, instead of defending the rook or moving it, he simply decided to do the following. Pawn takes pawn. What are your thoughts on a move like that? Well, when someone makes a move of this particular nature to us, especially for those of us who are quite used to playing in-person tournaments, we usually carefully observe exactly how our opponent reacts, to see if they really just left a rook hanging because they have absolutely no clear idea of what is currently going on and they're a very weak player, or if they actually have a sophisticated plan to sacrifice that rook. Well, at that moment, it's our turn to think. The idea is that if we think about it for a bit, we'll quickly realize that if we capture this rook, the game is going to get very dangerous for us. You see, if we take the rook on a8, they'll capture our knight with the pawn and we'll only be up the exchange. Not that much of an advantage. And on top of that, they'd be threatening the following: knight to c2, checkmate, since the queen, very cleverly placed on d8 since we didn't capture, covers the entire d-file, and the king wouldn't be able to escape the knight's check. So it seems extremely dangerous, doesn't it? Taking the rook, what did the white pieces do here? Well, with very good judgment, instead of taking the rook, they placed their own rook on the file, defending against the queen's attacks. That way we're telling black, now you can't take the knight because I'll take your queen. So now you're not attacking anything, but I'm still attacking your rook on a8, which is completely undefended. So pay attention, because here comes a move from black that leaves us shaken. That's why I wanted to show this game from this side, putting us in the shoes of the white pieces. Pay attention! The rook is under attack, so what does the player with the black pieces do here? Bishop to b7. They give it away completely. You see, that bishop isn't defended at all. So, what's going on? Well, the idea is that this bishop has to be taken, no matter what. If white now decides to move the queen away, black would simply play pawn takes knight, and even though this queen is left undefended, checkmate would be unavoidable after rook takes queen. You can check this for yourselves. I don't want to bore you too much with all the variations, but you should know that if you move the queen away here, you're lost. So the player with the white pieces has no choice but to capture this bishop and say, well, I'll just hope whatever you planned doesn't work. What do you think? Do you think it's over here? Is the adrenaline of the game dawn? Yeah, I know. This is probably one of the most adrenaline-filled games I've ever seen in my life. First, he gives up the rook. Why? Because he had a plan behind it. Obviously, he didn't just give it away for nothing. Then he gives up the bishop, and now do you know what he gives up? The queen. Pawn takes knight, logically giving up the queen completely. Black had a very well-prepared plan here. Sorry, I moved the camera a bit. Let me put it back in place. There we go. Logically, here white has to take the queen away, because if not, just imagine this. If black's attack is already strong without the queen, imagine it with the queen, right? Plus, by capturing, we give check and force black to recapture. The idea is that even though white now has extra material, in this case an extra queen, black's pieces are better placed, especially this knight, this pawn, and this rook. Pay attention to white's king side. What's going on with it? It's stuck and can't do anything. The king has no escape. It can only try to get out through the e-file, but that's completely blocked by the queen. You can see that here. There are very few ways to defend against checkmate. The checkmate that's being threatened is this one, right? Knight to c2. So you come to the conclusion that the only way to avoid knight to c2 mate is what? To give up the knight on d2. Careful, you can afford to give up material. Why? Because you have extra material, right? Alright, now I suppose here the white pieces said, well, now they're going to capture my knight, I'll continue with king to d1, and this game will be pretty even, because we'll simply have similar material. I'll develop my pieces, and I'll have a queen, and my opponent won't. But the next hard stopping moment came when the opponent played c2 here and pushed this pawn. Now, what's the threat? Well, the threat is crystal clear. To promote on c1 with a queen, delivering mate again. Do you see it? The threat's c1 mate, and you can't block it, for example with knight to b3, because the rook would come in on d1 and deliver checkmate. Therefore, it's not at all easy to cover this, so you can see that having extra material isn't everything in chess. What's the only way, friends, to stop c1 equals mate? The only way is to place the queen on the same file, and there's no other square but c7. You see it, right? Now the queen is covering the promotion square. But then black takes advantage of the fact that white hasn't developed to develop with tempo. Bishop to d6, threatening the queen, which absolutely must stay on the c-file to prevent the pawn from promoting. It can't go to c8 because of the rook, nor to c6 because of the knight, nor to c5 because of the bishop. The only available squares would be these two, right? c3 or c4. White places the queen in c4. Pawn takes pawn, threatening the queen. Look at how energetically black is playing, not giving white a moment to breathe. The idea is that the queen is being threatened, so it has to move. In this case, it can escape the c-file by capturing the pawn. Why? Simply because it's check, and black will have to waste a move by moving the king. But that's actually fine for them, because now after king to e7, they're connecting the rooks, and connected rooks are going to be decisive. Alright, now white can afford a luxury. What's the luxury? Playing knight to b3 to control the promotion square. Thanks to the bishop having come between the rook and the d1 square, there's no longer a possibility of rook to d1 checkmate. Do you see it? And so the knight can escape. But now, black simply plays using the method we chess players know as the push method, where you keep pushing all your pieces forward until you eventually deliver checkmate. Rook to b8, threatening the queen, a queen that wants nothing to do with it, so she moves as far away as possible. Now, what do black's pieces want to do? The goal is to promote, but this pawn isn't supported by anyone at the moment, so moving the knight to the a2 square carefully supports the eventual promotion on c1. However, they quickly bring in another rook, one that immediately threatens the knight, and the other which puts significant pressure here on the promotion square, and as you can clearly see, no matter what happens next. Yes or no, even if white has an extra queen. No one would want to be in white's shoes. They're definitely not having a good time. For now, white decided to capture this pawn, so now they're coming to attack the c2 square. And if necessary, they'd give up their queen in exchange for a rook, returning material, but at least making sure nothing happens here. Black successfully captures the knight, and at this point, quite obviously as you can imagine, white is forced to sacrifice their queen so that black can't promote. In this case, white thought, now the player with the black pieces is going to take my queen. I'll take the rook, and even though black will have an extra piece, I'll still have hope to fight on. But the player with the black pieces was so good that he didn't even let his opponent breathe. And instead of capturing the queen, he kept up the pressure with this beautiful move, which is actually the best in the position, bishop to b4. Check. The king has to move aside, and now another check with rook to d8. It appears that he does not actually want to take the queen. Can you see the reasoning behind it? Logically speaking, there is absolutely no better tactical move available than moving the queen to d3 to block the check once again. Now, yes, the queen is captured, keeping in mind that capturing the rook with the pawn would be a disastrous and massive blunder for the position, and I will explain exactly why. Why? And recovering the 2-0. But what the player with the white pieces didn't expect here was this marvelous move, bishop to a3. What an incredible move to finish off a truly successful game. Let me explain. If the rook is captured, then rook takes b2 check would follow, and we'd be right back where we started. And if the bishop is captured, which is the other option, it simply opens up this square here, c3, to give a check. And simply, this move would end up delivering a forced checkmate on the c1 square with the other rook, leaving no way out. What did you think of this game? Because honestly, when I realized I hadn't uploaded it to the channel, I thought, how could it be that my followers haven't seen this beauty? And of course, today you have it here on the channel, so if you like these kinds of commentary videos, leave me a big like, and remember, above all, if you're watching this before the newsletter comes out, subscribe now before it's too late. Right down here, you already know it's free to subscribe to the newsletter, and you'll be able to access, as soon as it's released, the Master Course by the great maestro Mauricio Flores, who for me is one of the strongest grandmasters the chess world has ever had when it comes to understanding positions. I assure you, you'll be fascinated because he has done a job incredible. I'm already studying it. I'm already going through the course for the second time. I've been reviewing it for 2 weeks now, just so you understand. It's fascinating. You'll love it. I hope you have. By the way, the course is somewhat advanced. Don't think it's just for beginners. It does have a certain level, but that's not a problem at all, because since you'll have it forever, you can always review it. If you don't reach the level right away, that's perfectly fine, because it means you'll come back to it later and each time it'll make more sense to you. But of course, he designed it so that everyone can understand it. That said, the goal is to turn players into elite players and finally get you to start winning real games once and for all. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow in the next new video, friends. Goodbye.